Hey everyone, it's Zainab Williams from Elverity Wealth, and today's topic is going to be on givers and takers. So my guest today is Claude Rodrigues, and from Cultivate Transformation Incorporated. So Claude specializes in these really fascinating topics when it comes to just human emotions. So just a bit about Claude. Claude has been a serial entrepreneur for over 25 years. He works with individuals and groups when it comes to transitioning from just corporate industries or any other area to entrepreneurship. So, Claude, if you don't mind sharing the reason of what really drew you into this fascinating topic of givers and takers.
I think, well, I guess I'll start first of all. My name is Claude. Hello to everybody. And thank you, Zainab, for having me on. And I really appreciate it. I know we've developed a relationship over the past little bit. I know a little bit about your story. I think you're absolutely magnificent. And what you do is absolutely incredible. So I'm really privileged to be here and that you've invited me to be on here. How I got on this topic of givers and takers is probably a bit from my own life. I think growing up, I sensed the feeling that there was a lot of times in my life where I felt like I was taken advantage of.
Mm-hmm.
And over time, I really wanted to understand, why was that happening? What was that about? Why did I feel taken advantage of? And in doing that, and in my personal journey, my personal growth, I began to develop this understanding of why it was happening. Because I had the sense of always blaming somebody else, like somebody else took advantage of me. And why did this happen? Why are people bad? Why are people like this?
Mm-hmm.
And then I began to figure out that that's actually not the case. And it really has to do with myself and how I view the world and how I see things.
Mm-hmm.
So I know we're going to talk about these three areas. So what are mutually beneficial relationships and why they're better? We're going to talk about setting healthy boundaries. We're going to talk about emotional and financial well-being. So the idea of givers and takers, I guess I'll start with myself as a giver. I think most people enjoy giving. They enjoy giving to other people. There's a sense of satisfaction. We deem this as a good thing to do, to give to others, to help others. And really, if we want to be in relationship with people and we want to build community and we want to build connection, giving to people is a big part of that.
Yes.
So we know this, almost internally, we understand what this is about. We also enjoy when somebody helps us and gives to us, and we understand what that feels like. But usually the act of giving, there's a really great feeling that happens for ourselves. The joy is in the giving.
Yes.
And I hear that a lot. When people talk about, the holiday seasons and, it's more important to give to someone than to receive. And this learning almost starts when we're younger. So we teach our children to be, to work with other people and to share the things that they have and to give to others. And we teach them these values because these are very important values to have. So it starts when we're young and we begin to develop it over time.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, most people will actually consider themselves to be givers.
That's interesting.
And I could be a giver and I could be a taker depending on the relationship or the scenario that I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
But even people that are takers will consider themselves as givers. And this is almost like a bias that we have, that we're good people. So most people want to be good people and they consider themselves good people.
Mm-hmm.
So because most people consider themselves givers, and when I talk about giving, I'm not just talking about when it comes to finances or material things. I'm also talking about giving time. I'm talking about giving companionship,
Yes.
giving people attention, giving people emotional support,
Mm-hmm.
giving people acknowledgement. I'll give you an example of something other than material items. So I'm sure everybody's had an experience where they have a friend that always comes to them with their problems, and then they'll call and I'll be in the middle of doing something really important and I'll stop what I'm doing and I'll listen to what's going on for them. I'll help them work through that problem and so on. So I'm giving of my time. because I could be doing something else, or I could be with my family, or I could be at work, but I'll stop what I'm doing so I can give them that time.
Yes, exactly.
And that gives me, that makes me a giver. So I find some value in this relationship and I give of my time. Now, the interesting thing about that is givers tend to want to give 100% of themselves in
Mm.
whichever area, but they're usually not really good at receiving things. So givers usually like to give to people and they want to help people out. And when somebody says, hey, can I help you? Oh, no, no, I don't need any help.
And why
So,
is that, do you think?
well, generally, there's something about from the giver standpoint, we haven't really developed um, that ability to be confident in who we are and what we do. And that's almost a coping mechanism. It hides the lack of confidence. So if I don't need help,
Yes.
then I don't have to be vulnerable and say that, hey, I can't do something. So generally givers tend to also be people pleasers.
Yeah.
So they're getting their value from that joy of giving, but really it becomes an overcompensation. So they become people pleasers and they're trying to help other people and give to other people because they get that satisfaction of being part of the group or being part of the community, and they get it from the giving. So
Right.
they generally don't allow people to give back to them. So let's say I'm a giver and I
Mhm.
give 100% of myself at something. I may be able to receive 10% back. So if
Okay.
somebody wants to give me something back, I might be able to say, okay, fine, I'll give you a day of my time to help you do something. And, maybe I'll accept that you come over for a little bit and help me do something. But
Hmm.
givers generally, it's that satisfaction of the giving. They've already received the satisfaction in the giving, so they don't want anything in return. Now, on the other side of this, we
But
have,
just a quick question. In
sure,
terms of they don't want anything in return, is it because maybe they might feel like they don't deserve anything in return?
absolutely, that's part of it. That's part of the self-confidence.
Okay.
So the self-confidence says that they don't deserve what they get. So they're trying to overcompensate. They want to give to try to build up that deserving.
To build the deserving aspect of it.
Yep.
Okay. I see. I
So
see.
if I'm giving something and somebody gives back to me, then I can't build that deserving because I'm getting back what I gave. So I know I'm back to square one where I don't deserve what I'm getting. So
Hmm.
it's a sense of I have to work extra hard to be able to deserve the little bit I get.
Oh, interesting.
Now, the opposite side of that, actually, even before I go into the opposite side of that, interestingly, I thought to myself, if I'm a giver and I'm constantly giving to people, I thought the natural person that I would tend to gravitate toward would be somebody who's also giving. So it would almost make sense that if I'm really giving and I'm in a relationship or I surround myself with friends and business colleagues and so on that are also really giving, that
Hmm.
we would have a wonderful relationship.
Absolutely.
But unfortunately, that's not the case. Because what happens is the givers, they tend to butt heads. If I'm giving to somebody 100% of myself and I'm only willing to accept 10% back,
Hmm.
and I'm giving to somebody else who's trying to give me 100% and only takes 10% back, now we have a problem. We have a conflict because I want to give to them and I don't want anything back. They want to give to me. They don't want anything back. And we end up not being able to give to each other.
I
And there's almost a sense of if I gave somebody, I mean, I'll use an example. Let's say uh, I lent somebody my car
hmm.
and they brought it right back and then said, I'll lend you my car. It doesn't work, right?
No.
I don't need their car. They don't need my car. So there's no point. The giving doesn't work.
Yes, there's
So
an imbalance.
there's no balance there. They tend to butt heads. Or somebody will give someone, let's say I give somebody a ride, and then they want to overpay me for it because they're givers. I won't accept it, and then we tend to have an argument about it. Just
Hmm.
like people who go to a restaurant and the bill comes, and one says, "Hey, I'll pay for the meal," and the other person says, "I'll pay for the meal," because
Exactly.
they're both givers, and then they end up fighting about who's going to pay for the meal. And then as they leave, they'll be talking, they'll be maybe contemplating or speaking to somebody else saying, hey, that person didn't let me pay for the meal. I didn't really like that. I
Yeah.
wanted to pay.
And there's
And
that sense of resentment because you
right,
didn't get your wishes fulfilled.
that's right.
Oh.
So I didn't get the enjoyment of the act of the giving. So generally givers tend to butt heads so they don't make good colleagues.
Okay.
So the other side of the giving are the takers. So I'm giving them this name of taker, and it sounds really bad. So we're not going to take it in that context, but we're just going to take it from the point of the takers are the people that are receiving.
Yes.
So the people who are takers, um, they tend to understand that if I give 10% and I get 100 back, so there's a different type of expectation. So the givers want to give 100% of themselves, and they only want 10% back.
Mm-hmm.
Takers tend to put 10% into something, and they want 100% back. So you'll notice a lot of the people who are very wealthy, and I shouldn't say a lot of the people, but there are people that are very wealthy, and they
Yeah,
get wealthy because they understand that if I invest 10%, I don't want less of a return, I want more of a return. So there's an
absolutely.
understanding there. I invest and I want more back. So they're going to invest some money in someone, or they're going to invest some time in someone, but
Mm-hmm.
they want more than what they invested. So there's an understanding there. Um, Now, they understand that this gets them ahead in life.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll see takers over time, they tend to accumulate more material items, more money, maybe more time and freedom. And it's disproportionate to the givers because they're constantly taking more. So they invest a little bit, they want more in return, and they tend to grow.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, and now, just like the givers, you would think that takers would get along really well with other takers because they understand these processes of investment, and I'm going to put in a little bit and I'm going to reap a big reward, that they would surround themselves with other takers. But just like in the giver situation, that doesn't work. It doesn't
Exactly.
work because if I want to invest 10 with someone and I want 100 back, and that other person wants to do the same, they want to invest 10 with me and they want 100 back, we're going to butt heads
Absolutely.
because there's no agreement there.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing about this is that I find the people who are takers, they tend to recognize and manipulate certain advantages. So they look for the advantages. They tend to look for somebody that will complement them. And the person that will complement the takers are the givers,
Mm-hmm.
and vice versa. The person that complements the givers are the takers. So it's a beautiful relationship. A giver wants to give 100% of themselves, and they only want 10% back. A taker wants to give 10%, they want 100 back. So they're like a match made in heaven. They
Mm-hmm.
really help, they really support one another
Yes.
because they enter into this relationship where the giver is giving all the time, the taker keeps taking all the time, and it works really well. They have a wonderful relationship.
There is a common understanding of
That's a common
everyone's role.
understanding, yes. And a lot of times it's an unwritten rule in the relationship. So they don't come out and say, "Hey, I want uh, I want to invest 10 and I want 100 back." It'll be more of an unwritten rule. So you'll might have a friendship where I'm always letting go of the things that I'm doing to go help my friend, but in the times that I need some help, my friends, "Oh, sorry, I'm busy, I can't," and I'll just accept that if I'm a giver. And the takers, on the other hand, they're okay with letting the givers know that, hey, I can't let you go, I can't help you out, and I can't let go of what I'm doing because of this and this and this. And the givers are just okay with it. The takers are just okay with it, and the relationship will continue for a period of time. And they generally run into trouble
Mm-hmm.
at the time that the givers begin to get depleted.
Mm.
So you have to look at the math. If a taker keeps taking, and they're going up and up and up, the giver who's giving, so if they both started balanced and level, the taker keeps leveling up, the
Yes.
giver will continually get depleted. because they're giving their time, their emotional well-being, their physical well-being, their financial well-being. They're giving it all away for that feeling of I feel good in giving. But
Yes.
eventually, if they continue to give and give and give, the givers will get depleted to the point where they don't have enough for themselves.
And that's
And
where the resentment begins to build in.
that's exactly right. So the resentment begins to build in because as a giver, once they get to the point where they no longer have enough for themselves, they'll intuitively recognize I've been giving everything I have and I need some help. And they'll finally get to the point where they're willing to ask for help because now they know I can't avoid this anymore. I need the help. And the first person they'll go to ask for help is the person they've been giving to.
Yes.
So they'll go ask the person they've been giving to help them out. But the taker, who's been receiving all of this wonderful benefit, recognizes they entered into this agreement because they're looking for somebody where they can invest 10% of their time or their money or their efforts and
Mm-hmm.
receive a greater bonus. They don't want to change that. There's an agreement, or whether it's written or unwritten agreement. I don't want to change that. So I'm sorry, I can't help you. And then the giver will build a resentment because they'll look at this person and say, hey, I've been helping you for so long. I've been giving you and giving you and giving to you. And now I need some help and you won't help me. You're
Mm-hmm.
a bad person.
Mm.
And they'll build this resentment. They'll have this sense of blame. They'll have this sense of, I don't like this relationship and you're not a good person because you're not giving me anything when I need it.
Is it also because they feel that I was giving, but then I also was not getting that satisfaction of I deserve what I'm
Right.
getting. If the taker is willing to give them the 10%, even though the taker does give them the 10%, however, from the giver's standpoint, they don't deserve even that 10% they've been getting, even though they've been putting out 90. So
Mm-hmm.
essentially, once they've gotten to that state of depletion, it's more or less even the 10% that you were giving me was not really enough to complete my,
No.
to make me feel fulfilled. So therefore, I feel like there is an imbalance in this relationship.
Yes. You're absolutely right. And a lot of that has to do with the giver gets their value from the giving. But
Yes,
once they're depleted and they have nothing left to give, they can't get the value from the giving anymore. So
absolutely.
now they need something back. So the interesting thing that I find is people who are takers were once givers.
Really?
So
Oh.
so givers end up giving everything they have until they get to the point of depletion. They'll go ask the takers for help. The takers will refuse, and the giver will feel that resentment. They'll deem them as a bad person. The takers, from their perspective, they're thinking, hey, you're breaking our deal. You're breaking our contract.
Mm-hmm.
You're taking from me. Like you're trying to break our contract. That's not good. You're not a good person. We had an agreement. This has been working well. I give you 10%, you give me 100 back. This has been working really well. You're trying to change that. You're a bad person. So
Mm-hmm.
eventually the relationship breaks apart. And the giver will have to go and try to figure out how to pull themselves back up. And
Yes.
that's usually a long and difficult road. It's very painful. And most of the time they'll do it. They'll find a way to get themselves back on top. But then they'll go through the process again of giving, 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 giving till they're depleted. And then they'll have to get themselves back on top again. And then they'll give, give, give till they're depleted. And when a person goes through that process enough times, there'll be a point at which they recognize this isn't sustainable. I can't keep doing this. And something in their mind clicks.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the idea of this person took from me. I've been giving, giving, giving. The taker took from me. They're a bad person. They took from me. And now I keep having to get myself back up and I keep giving to everybody. And then I'm back in this hole again. I don't ever want to be in this hole ever again. I will never give again.
Okay.
So they'll get to this point where they will no longer give to anybody again because it keeps putting them in the hole. And essentially what happens is they now reverse roles. They just became a taker. So now they're going to get into relationships feeling justified, because
Yes.
that's what it is. You feel justified. I've been through this process of giving, giving, giving till I had nothing. And I had to bring myself back up again on my own. And then ended up in nothing again. I brought myself back up. And now there's this justification that, hey, I'm never going to give again. And
Hmm.
I'm justified because I've given before and people took advantage of me. And people took advantage of me. So I'm not going to do that again. I've paid my dues. Now they're in this position of, I feel deserving of taking from others because I've been through this process enough times that I've gotten to the point where now I feel like I deserve everybody giving me what I get.
Absolutely.
So now they become a taker. So this creates an imbalance. So you have people that are at the bottom, they're giving, people at the top that are takers. The givers eventually, if they keep going through that process enough times, they become takers.
Yes.
But interestingly enough, in the middle, there lives this population of people that are mutually beneficial.
Mm.
So in mutually beneficial, what we're talking about is people that grow together. They benefit one another.
Mm.
And I'll just give a very simple example of what it looks like. Let's say I'm a farmer and I have orange trees and I harvest oranges. And let's say over the course of a month, I collect 10 boxes of oranges. Now I'm
Mhm.
just making this up. I mean, I don't even know how the industry does these things, but
No problem.
let's say we have 10 boxes of oranges. Now, to feed my family and to pay my bills and to do all my things, I really only need 5 boxes of oranges.
Okay.
So, what happens is if I consume the 5 boxes of oranges that I need, I'm good, I have everything I need. And the extra 5 boxes that I have, because I have 10,
Hmm.
the extra 5 is going to essentially go to waste because I only need 5 to survive, but I have 10, so the extra 5 go to waste. So now I get involved with somebody else who, let's say, they have apple trees.
Yes.
Now, the other person with apple trees has 10 boxes of apples, and they recognize that they only need 5 boxes of apples to survive, and the other 5 boxes go to waste.
Hmm.
So you have two people that are level here. They both have 10 boxes, one of apples, one of oranges. They only need 5 to survive. The other 5 go to waste. So what they do is they do a mutually beneficial swap where they enter into an agreement that the person with oranges gives the extra 5 boxes to the person with apples. The person with apples gives their extra 5 boxes to the person with oranges. And
Yeah.
guess what? If they're both needed 5 and 5 were going to waste, they did this switch. Now they both leveled up
Exactly.
because now each of them is going to have 5 boxes of apples, 5 boxes of oranges, which they can put to use. And now they both leveled up because
Hmm.
otherwise before there was going to be some waste. And in this mutually beneficial group, they grow together, so they level up. And this relationship tends to maintain because the equilibrium is always there.
Yes.
So in the giver and taker, the giver keeps going down, taker keeps going up, and then eventually the taker is depleted and this relationship has to break off because it can't continue.
Hmm.
But in the mutually beneficial, they keep leveling up. So every month, as they make this switch, they have 10 boxes. They need 5 of the thing that they're working on. They give each other what they have and they continue to level up together. So really this type of relationship benefits everybody.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And the question now becomes, so getting back to the beginning, we said we're going to talk about mutually beneficial relationships and why they're better. The reason why they're better is because the relationship will continue over time
Yes.
because they continually help each other to level up. And this is really how communities are built. Communities are built with people that have different skill sets and different abilities and different capacities, different interests,
Hmm.
who have enough for themselves and then share this talent that they have, share this ability that they have with other people in exchange for something that they need. So they're not outside looking to take from people and leave them depleted. And they're not looking to give away everything and leaving themselves depleted.
I think even from that context, it's really important for you to really take a pause and understand what exactly are you willing to give, and what
Mhm.
exactly is your actual um, line that you can't cross, because you already know
Absolutely.
where your threshold lies, really,
Yes,
before you can move any further.
that's right.
And how many of us take that time to really understand who we are?
Absolutely. So you've hit it exactly. Um, the reason why some people are givers is because they haven't taken the time to do that. So when we look at this, we need to know if we want to get into mutually beneficial relationships, we have to build clarity
Mm-hmm.
around understanding what our minimum is. So
Yes.
if I know that whatever my skill set is, so again, I'm using the example of oranges, but oranges could be I'm a financial advisor. The
Mm-hmm.
oranges could be I'm a car mechanic, I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer. It could be whatever the skill set is. If you know that what your minimum is, and you have clarity around that, and you have clarity around what are my minimum finances, what do I need to survive and pay my bills, what's
Exactly.
my minimum emotional well-being. So for example, if I'm a person that works for um, a hospital and I'm in the ER all day, that's going to tax my emotions. I'm
Mm-hmm.
dealing with trauma all day long, so I'll be emotionally depleted. So I need to know what my minimum rest time is and recoup time during the day. A person who has an easier job might not need as much rest time and recoup time. So if I understand what my needs are financially, I understand what my needs are emotionally, I understand what my needs are physically, and I know what that minimum is to survive, then I won't be giving it away as a giver.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the trouble that givers get into, is that they don't understand what their minimum is. So if I need a minimum hours of rest, and a friend is calling me in need in the middle of the night and taking that time, and they're doing it repeatedly, and I have to sit up all night and listen to what's going on and listening to their problems and so on, it's taking a toll on my physical well-being, might
Yes.
be taking a toll on my emotional well-being. And if I know the minimum amount of sleep that I need, and I'm clear on that,
Mm-hmm.
having the clarity on it almost sets healthy boundaries on its own. I know there's a lot of courses out there on how to set healthy boundaries and teaching you the language of setting healthy boundaries. But I think, and that's important, but the first step really becomes getting clarity on what my minimum needs are. Because once I really know what my minimum needs are and I'm clear on that, it
Mm-hmm.
automatically sets inside me that I'm not going to give this away.
Yes.
So if I can't wake up in the middle of the night to hear what the person has to say because I have to be at work in the morning, and I'm sure everybody can do it maybe once or twice, but if this is the type of relationship where this happens repeatedly,
Mm-hmm.
then and I know that I need that sleep and I'm clear on it, and I'm very aware that I need that to function, that's automatically going to cause me to say, hey, can we talk about this in the morning?
Okay.
Can we talk about this after work the next day?
And Claude, do you find that when it comes to being a giver, a lot of givers would say that my identity is tied to giving.
Yeah.
So I'm a good person, so therefore I give.
Yes.
So wouldn't it be also a way of actually readjusting that identity, so that not only you know your minimums, or then you also want to be able to understand that my identity is not tied to giving?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So I was gonna touch on that. So personal development is one of the things that's essential in developing this skill
Mm-hmm.
of getting into mutually beneficial. So it's about taking responsibility for your situation, because many people who are givers don't take responsibility. They'll give, give, give till they have nothing left, And then when they have nothing left, they have an excuse. And the excuse is, oh, sorry, I can't pay my bills because I gave all my money away to this person, or I helped so and so with their payments, and I helped so and so with what they were doing. So I've given all my money away, and now I'm left with an excuse. And the
Mm-hmm.
excuse is not taking responsibility. Um, as they develop their self-esteem and self-awareness through personal development, they're going to understand that a part of developing that self-esteem is the personal identity. So
Mm-hmm.
you talked about that, and that's really important. When I know who I am, and as I begin to develop that, I'll recognize that if I want to be a good person and I want to help people, am I really helping anybody by giving away everything that I have to the point where now I'm in dire need and I have to go take back or take from somebody else because it was taken from me? Is that really being a good person? So we really have to touch into that. Um, Importantly enough, um, creating a vision for your life, setting your goals, understanding what it's going to take to achieve those goals.
Mm-hmm.
That includes your self-identity.
Yes.
Because if you take the time to figure out, well, what do I want to do with my life? Who am I? What's my purpose here? What do I want to accomplish? And if we take the time to do that, to create that vision for our life, and to set those goals to achieve that, then we're actually taking that self-identity and we're causing it to come out into the world.
Absolutely.
So we're bringing ourselves into the world. And when we do that, we're taking responsibility for our life. And that eliminates us from being in the position of being a taker or being a giver, because we're giving to the planet on a larger scale, because we're giving of ourselves. It's part of our plan. Um, Now, having a financial plan to achieve your goals and to achieve that vision and that future is also very important. So
Absolutely.
people that are in this mutually beneficial space, they have that financial plan. They take the time to create that financial plan,
Exactly.
because the essence of being in this mutually beneficial is knowing what your minimum is. And then what you're doing is the excess that you have, now you can do what you want with that excess. So what happens is, if you want to give away that excess, then you can give it away. And you know now you're a person that's really giving and creating an impact, because I'm
Absolutely.
only giving away my excess. So back to that scenario, if I'm a person that has apples and I have 10 boxes of apples and I know I only need 5, I will never give away or trade or work with the 5 that I need. It's the excess that I'm going to work with. So if I'm clear on what my needs are, now the excess, I can be a good person. So if my identity says I'm a good person, I'm a giving person, now I can give away that excess if that's what I want to do with it. And I
Exactly.
know that I'm always going to be okay because I know what my minimum is. So in the sense of identity and being a good person, a kind person, so on, if you really want to achieve that and accomplish that, you can't be a giver. You need to be mutually beneficial. You need to know what your minimum is so that you know when you're giving something away, you're not putting yourself in harm. Because
Absolutely.
when I'm in harm and I'm depleted, I now have to take from somebody else to get better again. So if I'm really a person that wants to be good and kind and help others, I need to put myself in a position where I'm mutually beneficial. I know what my minimums are, and I don't give away, barter, or trade or work with what my minimum is. And that leads us to that idea of pay yourself first.
Exactly.
Now, we hear this in the financial industry, pay yourself first.
Mm-hmm.
If I pay myself first, then I know my future is always going to be taken care of. So that's part of creating that future financial plan. So
Yeah.
I'm planning for my finances currently, and I'm planning for my finances in the future. And I'm going to pay myself first. And if I pay myself first, I know that I will always be taken care of. And any excess that I make, I can now do what I want with it. If I want to be a taker with it and I want to invest it, put in 10 and get 100, and maybe invest that into somebody who needs the 10, great. If I want to give it away and I want to be a philanthropist, no problem, I can give that away. If I want to, I mean, you can do anything with the excess. But
Absolutely.
what the mutually beneficial people know is that I don't give away, trade, or do anything with that minimum, because I need that minimum and I need to pay myself first.
Absolutely, Claude. I'm glad you're able to touch on that because it's something that people need to really grasp and appreciate.
Mhm.
Because once you start understanding that it's all about having the intention and attention when it
Yes,
comes to your financial well being, your emotional well being, understanding and knowing the minimum is
yeah.
what is critical towards your growth.
So yes, I think that brings us to the end. I don't know if you have any other questions or if I can create any more clarity about that. I
I
know that, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just about to say it was very well rounded on the topics you touched on. And I think when it comes to just the emotional well being, growth comes from a foundation that is stable. So
That's right.
once we have taken care of ourselves emotionally, then that growth, that strength is what really translates into our finances, into our relationship. So I think I love the way you spoke about having those mutually beneficial relationships, because once you start drawing the boundaries and knowing what is really your capsule that
That's right.
protects you, then it's easier to be able to navigate into life
That's right.
from a place of strength and clarity.
100%. Well said. I really like that.
So, Claude, how can people reach you if they want to understand more about your work and your
So,
story, which is
so
powerful?
thank you. You can reach me on all the regular social media platforms. So it's Cultivate Transformation. We're on Facebook, Instagram. You can go to our website, cultivatetransformation.com. And from there, all my contact information is available. Anybody that wants to talk about it further, I do one-on-one coaching appointments. I do group sessions. So anybody that wants to reach out, always available.
Awesome. So, what I'll do is once I post this video, I will provide a link to your website and all your social media handles.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Claude. I really appreciated your time, and I can't wait for you to share your story and what really drew you into this industry.
Yes, I will. Hopefully, we'll have more of these conversations in the future.
Absolutely.
Thanks again.